Saviryam karvavahe tejasvinavadhitamastu mavid vishabahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Katha Upanishad 2, 3, 16. We are almost come to the end of this wonderful Upanishad, which Swami Vivekananda loved and wanted us to memorize and have that kind of faith, Shraddha, that is shown in the young boy Nachiketa when he, through the force of his intelligence and faith and daring, he could extract the knowledge of Brahman from the god of death. It's a wonderful. The 16th verse is 2, 3, 16. The nerves of the heart are 101 in number. Of them, one passes through the crown of the head. Going up through that nerve, one gets immortality. The others that have different directions become the cause of death. Here we have. Now, the word used is Nadi, the subtle astral tubes. They cannot be seen with these eyes. Your ordinary nerves that carry the nerve impulses can be seen, and you have neurology, the whole science of neurology connected with the nerves and the brain. But these nerves, the spiritual nerves, cannot be seen with the naked eye. It needs a special type of perception. So, before we can get into this, the explaining the verse, there is a little background. In the 14th verse, and also in the other verses, 2 verses previous to this, that it is said that that person attains Brahman year. Atra Brahma Samosnute. Attains Brahman year. Nothing is spoken about going, or nothing is spoken about coming. That attainment is here and now. Okay. Now this teaching is meant only for a very, you can say, elite type of spiritual aspirants. Those who have realized when the knots of the heart have become sundered, they realize Brahman here. These are the very few who attain what is called Jivan Mukti, freedom while living. Well, there are some who keep on diligently practicing over and over and again, but they are not of that same class of the first type of aspirants. So isn't there any liberation for them? Yes, there is a liberation. There is liberation. So, this verse is for those aspirants who fail to attain that freedom while living here. They have to have attained something called a gradual liberation, krama mukti. There are other aspirants and other, you can say, they have not reached anywhere. They struggle and struggle and struggle, but then they have to be, reborn to push forward their practices. So what about them? Well, the Upanishad, the commentator of the Upanishad says, they also need to be included in this kind of passage, one type of aspirant is completely freed. There is no point in going and coming. As the Upanishads also say, Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad, Na tasya pranam utkramanti. Though his or her pranas, the senses, do not depart. But being Brahman, he attains Brahman here. Brahma with sun, Brahmaiva bhavati. So there's no question of going and coming. So there's another second class of aspirants that go from one place to another. And that is called the Brahmaloka, the highest plane of relative existence, the superfine. It's not ordinary. It has to be mentioned that those who take this path and go down that special one, to that special nerve, they go to the highest, you can see. They are identified with Hiranya Garbha or Brahma in what is called Satyaloka. And then there are others who will need to kind of come and do a little pushing and shoving and what about them? Yeah, this is about them. So now we can understand the passage here. The nerves of the heart are 101. Of them, one passes through the crown of the head here. Going up to that nerve, one gets immortality. There it is. The others that have different directions become the causes of death. Here you have the heart. The seat of the heart is here. That's a seat of consciousness here. That's why we ask to meditate. So from here, there are those streams of nerves branching out. And out of them, one comes straight out and exits from here. It's called a sushumna. Later the Tantras took up this Ida and Pingala and Sushumna, the passages. Can this be seen? Yes, Swami Vivekananda said it's a thin golden thread like, you can say, passage. I have seen it. So it is seen, it can be seen. And one has to enter into that channel, Sushumna, and exit the body through that. Now, the topic for today is departure from the body. Now, how do we depart from the body? Well, we can depart from the body by going really inside. But that's counterintuitive. You have to depart from the body going outside. The senses, etc., are going outside, and they have created a lot of problems. The body also wants to go outside. No, the trick is in yoga, if you want to depart the body, if you want to come away from the idea of a body, go really deep within. And in that deep within, you will find that special nerve called the sushumna. Okay. Now, when a child is in the womb, okay, the umbilical cord through which it is fed via the mother's blood, okay, that is attached to the navel. And from there, all the development takes place. That becomes the mouth, as it were. This is a mouth here, but the fetus is not eating through the mouth. It is being fed through that, the belly button, the umbilical cord. There it is. That's the physical aspect. Okay. The spiritual aspect of that baby is, as it were, there's that spiritual umbilical cord which is connected with the heart. Okay? So there are two umbilical cords. One is the physical one, through which the body grows, develops. In the 9 months, it stays in the womb. There is another umbilical cord which cannot be seen with the eyes. That umbilical cord is kind of joined here. Everyone and everything is joined, you see. So what joins this and that? Yeah, this connection is always there in the sense of your Atman is with the Paramatman, always. This connection. But then we have forgotten. So this, like the umbilical cord, which through your belly button goes into nourish your whole body, and the body develops around it. Similarly, your spiritual life and spiritual body develops around this umbilical cord, spiritual umbilical cord. And so this is the place we are asked to meditate over and over. So going down deep inside, we come down to that spiritual heart. That is very important. Okay? So here is saying 101 nerves. So the one nerve leads you upwards, leads you to immortality by piercing the other centers. And the other 100 nerves, they spread out through the body all over. And if the soul exits from any of the other 100 nerves, there is then rebirth. There are some people who exit from the toe, or from the ankle, or from the shin, or from the calf, from the knee. There's from the back, from the front, and from this, from that. If you come down higher and higher, you get higher and higher births. If you exit from the eye, or from the nose, or here, and this is the highest. So it's like from the heart are radiating 101 nerves. The one nerve, sushumna, nadi, leads you to immortality, and the other leads you to rebirth. This is departure from the... We have discussed this in our previous, you can say, classes. Those who are interested, you could go and kind of look at those lectures there. But here we are more interested in that one. How do you depart? So people say, oh, my sushumna, my kundalini has been awakened and it's moving up. And yeah, but please, the sushumna, the power that rises to the sushumna is a power of the mind which has been controlled. In the Bhagavad Gita, you have that verse, Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvar madhye pranama veksha samyak satam param purushamupaiti divyam. At the time of that prayana kale, manasa chalena, with the mind made steady. And then bhruvar madhye pranama veksha, while fixing the prana in the center of the eyebrows to the strength of yoga. Now, what is strength of yoga? It is through concentration, one has overcome the elements that go to make up your body. You see, what happens is our body is made up of gross elements. And our body is made up also subtle elements called tanmatras. So what are the 5 elements? Earth, water, fire, air, and space. Okay, this is the note. And they are in a state of admixture. They are they're permuted and combined with all the other things. And this, in the subtle body also, we have this tanmatra, the subtle elements, which are also earth, water, fire, air, and space. Okay? They are also in that combined form. We will have to gradually, from the grossest, from the earth, we'll have to conquer. Yes, you simply can't depart the way you think you want to. You can depart and attain immortality only and only when you can conquer the tanmatras, the subtle elements of earth, water, fire, air, and space. Yes, you have conquered then the whole of nature here, which is there in the body. You have conquered the body. It's only then you can enter into that one nerve called sushumna and exit outside. Otherwise, it's not possible. Without even conquering the subtle elements that go to make up your subtle body, it's not possible. So then the whole of that subtle body enters into that canal, and one after another you keep on conquering those elements. In the tantras it is called those seed mantras, lang, rang, yang, wang, shang, sang, all these kind of. But here it is just a practice of yoga, practice of concentration that you enter it. So as you enter, the Bhagavad Gita clarifies, here you hold everything out here and say Om and depart from the crown of the head here. I remember when we were very young, I think most of us, at least in India, when we are young, the mothers, they oil the hair of the babies, children. And I remember you put oil, and in India there we used to put coconut oil. We used to get a taste of that coconut oil down in your throat. How did they think? Why did that oil enter from here and no, it's not there. I have put oil on the head, not in your throat. Mothers used to say, but do you feel that too? Well, during that time, that nerve, those channels are still open in some people. You get the taste of that. So what does the oil pass down through? No, the subtle tanmatra, the subtle elements that make up that oil, you feel it here. So now, after all these years, then you remember, oh my God, what was that? Oh, that was, I still remember. So the nerves of the heart are 101. Yeah. Shatam chaika cha hridayasya nadya tasam murdanam abhinishritaika tayor urdvam ayanamrtatvameti vishwang anyo utkramane bhavanti. That's a beautiful. So, the nerves of the heart, the subtle astral tubes, the Nadis, they are called Nadis because the word Nad in sound is heard there. So, in that place where you can hear that subtle sound, what subtle sound is that? That's a subtle sound of the universe. Yes, you can hear this. And those who are purified, they will hear that anahata dhvani, the unstruck sound. Where do you hear it? Not through these ears. It is heard inside. It was those sound channels. Nad Brahman, Nad Brahma. So Nadis, so these sound channels are there, as it were. So one of them, as from emerging from the heart. Now, what is the heart? Heart, as I keep on mentioning it, is the center of your consciousness, the very core of your being, from your that thing called intellect, the heart, that intellect. So from there, because the intellect is the first thing to catch the reflection of this Atman, the consciousness. So it is there that consciousness is reflected most brilliantly. And the more pure the intellect is, the more finer is the reflection, the more clear is the perception of truth. So from there emerges all these, you can say, sound channels and nerves. So it's not mentioned here, but then all these sound channels, nadis, they have different colors. And these colors depend on one's karma. So depends on what karma is being fructified, you will emerge out of those nerves and come out of the body through those particular colored nerves. The sushumna is golden in color, like a golden thread. So you emerge outside, and as you emerge outside, there it is. Okay. Now, this is okay. This is the departure from the body. Yes, easy. Get down into that sushumna. With the whole big body? Oh, no. With your mind that has been purified and concentrated, you enter into that channel and start moving up. But of course, before that, you have controlled the subtle elements that make up the subtle body of yours. Because it's not only departing from the gross body. Otherwise, what's up? Your prana body and all these things, you're supposed to go out, leave everything. We think departure from the body, we departed from the body. Well, you have another two more bodies called subtle body and the causal body. You have got to come out of that also. So this is how you come out of all the bodies, departure from the bodies. The plane has departed. It's going to depart and they're going to arrive there. You depart from here, and where do you arrive? At immortality. One becomes immortal. This is the going, as it were. Where does that soul attain immortality? Yes, where there's a perception of truth, there is no night, there's no day, there's nothing. There's no hunger, there's no thirst. Nothing. What you are experiencing is that state of highest relative existence called the state of the cosmic mind, the Brahman. That is the level of existence. And then you enjoy supreme bliss and then dissolve in that reality, absolute reality. And if you come out from the other 100 nerves, well, you go depart, and there you actually come back again. You arrive. Again, you get into the womb. Again, you to the belly button to the heart button again. It's the same old thing. So get out of this mess. Okay. Utkramane of death, that becomes the cause. As we said, now in the view of concluding the purport of all the sections of the Upanishads, this verse, this technically, this is the last verse, 17th, but the 18th is just in order to kind of speak about the glory of Nachiketa and Yama, and be grateful that they gave us this knowledge. So technically, this verse is, and it's very important also in the tradition of the Ramakrishna mission here. The Purusha, the indwelling self of the size of a thumb, is ever seated in the hearts of people, of men. One should unerringly separate him from one's body like a stalk from the munja grass. Him one should know as pure and immortal, that is the Purusha. The Purusha one should know as pure and immortal. Angushta matra purushantaratma sada jananam hridaye sannivishta tam svaksharira pravrinhet munjadi vaishikam dhairena tam vidyat shukram amritam tam vidyat shukram amritamiti. It's repeated 2 times. So that Purusha, as we had seen over in the second chapter, in the 12th, the first canto, the Purusha, the size of the thumb, is without smoke, bright. So Angushtamatra Purusha Sada Jananam Hridaya Sannivishto. Like it was presented there in order for us to meditate on a particular form and a particular quality on the Atman. The Atman is this is the. So here it's taking up the theme again, showing us that Purusha, that Atman, which is like the size of a thumb, always seated down in your hearts, in the core of your being. Now, as we had said, it has to be separated from the body, from the gross body, from the subtle body, and the causal body also. How do we separate it? Very carefully. To discern what is consciousness and what is non-consciousness is very important. The incident that once took place in Balram Mandir, which I mentioned that it's important for the Ramakrishna mission in our order, because there was Swami Adbhutananda, and a Pandit was explaining the Katha Upanishad and this particular verse. The Purusha, the size of the thumb, is seated in the hearts of all beings. One should separate that Purusha from the other things, like you would separate the pith of a long stalk of grass. It's called the munja grass. In India, we had this long stalk of this grass, which had a pith inside. And that pith had to be separated very carefully. Ordinarily, you don't need to do that. But they are giving an example of those who want to separate the pith. And the illustration is given. And because it's very fine, it's tenuous. So you have to pull it out very slowly to separate the pith from the rest of the stalk of grass. So similarly, you have to separate that Purusha very slowly. To separate it how? From the elements, from the earth and water and the fire and the air and the space. What elements? These are the subtle elements that make up this universe, the gross as well as the subtle universe. So here you are You are separating. Is it necessary? Yes, because what happens is consciousness, when it is associated with the non-self, the unatman, appears as if it is the Atman. Like a red hot iron ball, tap tapindavat. The iron is not red hot. It has become red hot because of its association with fire. So as that fire has kind of become associated with it, the iron takes on you can say, the qualities of the fire. And the iron thinks, yes, I am hot and I am red hot and I can burn things down. But it is the fire that has entered from outside. Remove the fire, let it cool down, and the red hot iron ball will become a black, cold iron ball. So what happens is when consciousness is reflected in all the elements that make up the body. What are the elements? Like in the Sankhya philosophy, there are the 24 cosmic principles. There's a mixture of hundreds of things. The 5 sensory organs, the 5 motor organs, the 5 pranas, and then you have mind, intellect, ego, and the eye sense, and memory. And then you have the 5 subtle elements and the 5 gross elements. Oh, this whole universe is made up of those 24 elements. So when consciousness is reflected in that, these elements take on the hue of consciousness. That's why people are searching consciousness here in the body, in the brain. They won't find it. They will, of course, but that's a reflected consciousness. Pure consciousness has got no relational, you can say, transaction with this. This appears to be alive and kicking because of that consciousness. So one has to be very careful and separate the non-essentials from the essential consciousness. That which is reflected consciousness from the pure consciousness. And as you keep on separating it, how do you do that? This is it through the processes of yoga, as we have mentioned it. Through the processes of concentration, the mind becomes extremely subtle and it can discern the true from the untrue, from the elements from the pure consciousness, and slowly. So this, as the Upanishad says, him, that the Purusa one should know as pure and immortal, that Purusa one should know as pure and immortal. So that Purusa, Antaratma, is the indwelling self, the size of a thumb. Is then the Atman is the size of a thumb. That is given in order for us to be able to meditate on it. So, Adhumaka, without smoke, Jyoti river, as the other verses has mentioned. They are luminous. The Atman is luminous, like fire, without being associated with any smoke. Fire is always associated, but this is. So one has to meditate on that, become identified with that. This is the idea. So as you keep on meditating on this Purusha, luminous Purusha, one becomes identified with that. And as one becomes identified with that Purusha, one can, as it were, drop away all other identifications that one had previous to this identification with the Atman. Right now we are identified with the body, we're identified with this and this person and that person, with this food and that food. We are identified in hundreds of things. One has to separate oneself from all these things. Draw back. How do you draw back? Through yoga. Tam yoga mitim, that is yoga, as I say, when the senses, etc., are still, and the mind also is still, and the intelligence, the intellect does not flicker. That's the state of yoga. One has to be very, you can say, vigilant there. pulling it back in, disengaging with everything around, with the external objects, then from disengaging from the body, and then disengaging with the subtle body. And as you keep on disengaging, and what do you engage with? With the root of yourself, the consciousness, the Purusha. Purusha Purnamiti Anena. So that which fills everything, that is there in the depths of your being. So know that, saying, to be pure and immortal, know that to be pure and immortal. 2 times it's repeated. So one has to separate this thing very carefully, like you would separate the pith of a long stalk of grass from the grass. Pull it out. Okay? This is the processes of yoga. We will, of course, that's a very, very long, there are long explanations for everything. Next Wednesday, we will take the last verse, which is also a recap of some of the Upanishadic teachings, and also that will be the last Katha Upanishad class, the 53rd. This is the 52nd. Wow. And after that, as we've mentioned, we will be taking up a course on guided meditation. So we will take this up. First, we'll have 10 episodes. Each class will be one particular episode. And we'll take one part of this yoga series. How do you sit down? How do you breathe? How do you meditate? How do you concentrate? All these things. So it's a step by step. We'll stop here for today. So see you next Wednesday morning for the Katha Upanishad class. As we know, most of us now, we have tomorrow the Bhagavad Gita class, and the evening 7:30, and this evening we have the gospel reading by Swami Satyamayananda. Are there any questions that we can kind of?
No questions.
Okay. So we stop here for today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ram Krishna Arpanamastu.
There's one question that came. When will you start the meditation class?
November 18th, the 18th Wednesday. I think that is 10:30, yeah. Of course, it will be live streamed and it will be there on the YouTube. We'll just go along with certain basic instructions on yoga, how to meditate, and I would like you also to participate. It's going to be an engaging, you can say, session. It's not sitting down and listening to me. You will also have to sit down and practice along with it. I'll guide you through that.